It is good to see everybody this morning. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk for very long. No one wants to hear that. Wants to come to see the kids. We have successfully made it to Christmas week. It is finally here. If your car radio is tuned to 93.9, you have been listening to Christmas music since Halloween. If you, on Thanksgiving weekend, made it to a mall, there were stores, or tried to go, I'm just reading Facebook, I haven't been in one, try to get into a Ross store in the last week or two, the aisles are not passable. Apparently, people have forgotten how to rehang the stuff that they took off hangers. Apparently now, the common accepted behavior is look at something and throw it on the floor. You have successfully navigated at least 47 Hallmark movies. And surprisingly, one plot line. And because I saw it last night, and this is the most important one, because this is the best Christmas movie ever, Hans Gruber has fallen from Nakatomi Tower. It is finally Christmas. So the question is this morning, what's all this about anyway? I know that people told me years ago on Easter and Christmas, keep it simple. Keep it very, very simple. I'm going to violate that advice this morning. Violate that command. I'm not going to be reading from Matthew. I'm not going to be reading from Luke or Philippians. I'm reading from Hebrews chapter 2 this morning, oddly enough. Starting with verse 14 of Hebrews chapter 2, it reads like this. It says, since the children have flesh and blood, Jesus too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might destroy him who holds the power of death, that is, the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. For surely it is not angels he helps, but Abraham's descendants. For this reason, he had to be made like his brothers in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, so that he might make atonement for the sins of the people, because he himself suffered when he was tempted. He is able to help those who are being tempted. My question about Christmas is, why would God do this? Or why would God do it this way? I'm not sure it makes much sense. At least it wouldn't to me. I wouldn't do it this way. I would have had much better publicity. I would have hired a better PR person. It would have been much more public. It would have been in a palace. I probably would have come to Rome. Rome was starting to have indoor plumbing by the first century. I would not have come to Bethlehem. I would not have come to Palestine. And I certainly would not have come into a stable. There are 50 things I would have done better and cleaner. I mean, when I go on vacation, we go on vacation, and the choice is the Hampton Inn with the pillow top mattresses or Fred's Motel, $29.99. I know it's cheaper at Fred's Motel, but it's hard to sleep. I just feel like there's stuff crawling on me. So I'll pay more. We hear a lot about the why of Christmas during this season. In fact, if you go through some stores, we'll see bumper stickers. Remember the reason for the season. We see a lot of that phrase, so let me ask, what is the reason for this season? And I know if you ask people out there, they'll give you a wide variety of answers. First one is world peace. Well, it was Miss America this week, and that answer was given a lot, but that's probably not the reason for Christmas. It is a reason maybe to win Miss America, though this Miss America did chemistry. I saw this. I didn't watch it at all. I saw it. She did chemistry experiments, and stuff was blowing up on stage, and it's better than baton twirling. I'll give it to her. It's a step up. Or just compassion and love, if we could all just learn to live together, but I don't even think that's the reason. I think it's simpler. We say, oh no, the reason's Jesus. Remember the reason for the season. Yes, but what does that mean? Why would God do it this way? Why would Jesus come into the place and the time and the way that he did? Because if it had been any of us, I think we all would have done it differently. And it would have been much more apparent and much more plain. That's not what happened. What it says here is this. It says in Hebrews, that's why I read it. It says, for this reason. What reason? That he shared in their humanity so that by his death he might free us, or other, destroy him who holds the power of death, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery. The reason for the season is not world peace, is not compassion, is not we might all get along, and I want us to all get along, but that's not the primary reason. The primary reason is so that we might be free. Now that's a hard thing to say sometime in 2019. After all, what do I need to be freed from? I am in control. I have it all together. Everything is working. Almost. This morning, December 22nd, 2019, was the great contact lens down the bathroom drain Sunday morning in our house. We had a 45-minute stoppage of action, and pipe wrenches came out, and things were unscrewed, and buckets came out, and all that kind of stuff. The good news is the contact lens was successfully retrieved. And somehow, even though it was in the bottom of the drain, it is successfully installed in my wife's eye right now. There was a lot of liquid that was applied to it. A lot of cleaning happened before that. So even when we think we have it all together, sometimes things just kind of pop up and we least expect it. We live in a world still today that's often quite the mess. People scramble for power and control and influence, and that grasp and that scramble often hurts the people around them, and sometimes harms them quite severely. Now, I'm thankful that I live where I do, when I do, at the time that I do. This is quite amazing. Last time I flew, there was someone next to me who was really, really bothered that the in-flight Wi-Fi was too slow. Just hang on, just run that through your head just for a second. I understand that people depend on it, and it might be a reason to be a little frustrated. But I can, after church today, I won't, because I'd have to hire a divorce lawyer, but I could leave here and go straight to O'Hare. And I could buy a ticket to almost anywhere in the world. Probably have to wait till about 4 o'clock. I'd get on a plane, and I could get off that plane in Paris, or Vienna, or London, or Edinburgh. That's kind of where I'm shooting for anyway. There's a whole host of places I could go. Anywhere in the world that's available. I've never in my life worried about the mumps or smallpox, polio, or the plague. That used to be commonplace. Up until 1957, kids would play outside. One kid in the community would come down with polio. No kid would play outside again for months until it passed. We're very fortunate. We don't have to deal with some of the things that other people deal with. There are places in the country when we don't know when the army might come over the hill or the other tribe with machetes in the middle of the night. We don't ever have to worry about that. In fact, you can go on TV tonight and there's a whole bunch of people, they'll tell you you need to get, the video doorbell. That way when you're at the mall, you can see who's ringing your doorbell and talk to them to keep your house safe. Do you realize that right now is literally the safest time to have ever lived? You go, it's terrible out there. You have to go all the way, as long as they've been keeping crime statistics, it's safer now. And we're all convinced it's terrible. We're all convinced that hordes are ready to attack us as soon as we walk out of the house. And even though we haven't worried about a lot of things that most other people do, a lot of us, we struggle with the same things over and over and over again. Temper, anger, gossip, pride, crippling negativity, sin. Oh, we say we won't do it again, and we'll be good for a week, a month, 6 months, and something will happen. We find ourselves right back in the same spot, in the same pattern that we have before. We're right back where we started. Right back where we started. It seems like the deck is stacked against us. And you know what? The deck is a little stacked against you. I have to admit that. You can tell me over and over and over and over again about the wonderful health benefits of broccoli. I don't want it touching anything that I'm about to eat. I don't want the wind to blow the aroma of broccoli over my food. And I know that I should be eating it. Sometimes we find ourselves, we have a good, wow, I haven't lost my temper, and then something happens and we find that flare up again. We're all wired a little differently, but all of us at some point are short-circuited at some level. That's the church has said for 2,000 years. We kind of carry around in us this original sin. We not only battle us, we inherit. We can argue whether it's nurture or nature, but our selfish parents or our prideful grandparents or our angry great-grandparents, and we find some of that gets down to us. Those of us that have had more than one kid are shocked to find that the second kid comes out wildly different than the first one. And there's one kid that you have to stay on top of all the time, and you get a second one you just look at mean and they cry and go to the room, and that's all you have to do. So we battle ourselves. We battle everything that we've inherited. And we also live in a world that's a little less than pure. Let's put it that way. Let's be very charitable. People are more than willing to use their influence or power in ways that ignore or hurt other people. There are times it looks pretty bleak. I just thought, why could not have God just decreed from heaven that everyone's okay? Now, I don't know if they still do this. All of you over a certain age will understand this. How come God didn't just say, ollie ollie income free? My fear is if you're under a certain age, you have no idea what I just said. But that's not what God chose. And I want to go back to that first question. Why? Why would God have gone to this? This seems more difficult. This seems like there's more twists and turns. Why couldn't He just been simple like that? Well, God was faithful. He said earlier when going all the way back to Abraham, He goes, I want to make an agreement with you. And the agreement was, if you remember, they were going to walk down this sacrificial path together. And the reason they did this in the ancient world was very simple. Whoever. Do I have a light goofing up behind me? Thank you, Alex. No one saw that at all. The whole thing was, whoever violates this covenant between us what happened to these animals happen to us. God caused Abraham to fall into deep sleep, and God walked along that path, saying, whoever violates this covenant, I'll pay the price. And Jesus coming at Christmas is Him paying the price. God is entering the mess that we made. Notice I did not say God is punishing us for the mess or lecturing us about the mess or making us feel bad about the mess. God willingly entered the mess himself. And that mess will eventually seek to end his life. It'll take a while to get there, but it does. Jesus' life demonstrates that we do not have to give in to the hatred and hurt around us. His death is like ours. Jesus died a real death. God experiences everything in life that we do. And because of that, Hebrews tells us Jesus can be a great high priest. One knows life as we know it. One that's experienced life as we've experienced it. A disgraced family. An average hometown. A town of no really special reputation. Betrayed by friends. Living under an oppressive government. And eventually dies an unjust death. There's almost literally nothing that you can go through that Jesus didn't go through. The resurrection then means that new life is available for all of us. And it started with a life that came at Bethlehem. We do not change just because we believe something. We don't change just because we believe that Jesus was God and he came at that first Christmas. It's more than that. We change by having different behavior that acts on this new belief. Abraham didn't just say, yes, I believe you, God. He left Ur and went to the land that God will show him. Moses didn't just believe. He went back to Pharaoh's courts and pleaded for his people. Jeremiah didn't just believe. He joined his people in exile. Ananias didn't just believe. He went and prayed for that guy named Saul. That was dangerous. And because Jesus was in every way like us, including like a baby. So, about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I'm going to violate the rules of a preaching class I took years and years and years ago. Mabel's at our house. That's my granddaughter, if you don't know who that is. And for 20 months, I had successfully dodged the worst that a 20-month-old can offer. Well, one morning, she'd been maybe up a little late or something, and she'd been up early in the morning, and I told my wife, I said, you sleep in. I'll entertain Mabel. I'll get her breakfast. I'll make her an egg, sausage, did all that stuff. We did all of that stuff. Got all done. Mabel and I were having fun. I turned around. I did something at the kitchen, and I looked at Mabel, and she was kind of waddling with her legs apart, and she was reaching back here. And she looked at me and went, she calls herself Mimi. She goes, Mimi, poopy. And I thought, I'll go wake Grandma up now. But I didn't. And for the first time, Grandpa, first time in 27 years, Grandpa changed a poopy diaper. In 27 years. I don't get a purple heart, I get a brown heart. So if I said this particular morning a green heart, I shouldn't say that. But anyway, it was bad. I want you to, this is the God of the universe that came down and needed his diaper changed. This is a God of the universe that came down that needed to be comforted, that needed to be fed, that needed to be consoled, that needed to be kept warm, that need to have people look in the crib and go, beep, 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 goo, 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 and all the stuff. To become like us in every way. To know what it's like to play with 3-year-olds. To know what it's like to run around with teenagers. To know what it's like to have an intrusive mother. You think I'm stretching it? Read John chapter 2. To have strains in the family. To have people put him down as an adult. Oh, we know who you are. We're not illegitimate like you are Jesus. Read John chapter 8. And so Jesus can become a great high priest. This is old language that we don't use much anymore because it's not really part of our world. In order for him to really take our place, in order for him to really be a sacrifice for us, to free us, he had to become very much like us in every way. Because of that, there's now connection. The sacrifice is now appropriate, and it's from the one who knew the pain and went through it anyway. So Jesus experienced life as we experience it. So think about that just for a second. Jesus suffered. That's what our text says. Because Jesus himself suffered, he is able to help those who are currently being tempted, who are currently suffering. So next time, you're driving, you put your shoes on, not loafers, you had to tie them, and you get in the car and you start down the road, and you get one of those itches in your foot. You know what I'm talking about? And your shoe's on and you can't get to it. And you try to stomp on the floor of the car, but that doesn't work. Jesus had one of those. Had one of those days where you wake up and your head goes this way, won't go that way. Same thing. Ever ate at the restaurant and you thought the soup smelled funny and you ate it anyway? And the next day you paid the penalty? Happened to Jesus. Everything we experience in life, he experienced in life, including this odd birth, including the lonely death, so that we might be free from the things that plague all of us. All of us. Started at Christmas. It started at Christmas. It's not just warm feelings. And a baby was born. That's draining it of its meaning. See, the goal of life is not to feel guilty. The goal of life, as Jesus said, is to live it fully. We are not just to believe a historical thing happened, but we are to actively live differently in response to this event. If Jesus died and was like us in every way, then the penalty for sin has been paid. And if Jesus rose again, then the whole system that required our death has been smashed. And we're to live life, a new life, fully. Back to my text in Hebrews. And free those whose lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. That doesn't mean anything to us today. At the time this was written, we had just come off of 10 years of Nero. Hebrews was probably written in around 71 or 72 AD. Nero is very much, he's just been 7 years out. But there's been a lot of people they knew that are dead now. They saw people get thrown to the dogs. They saw people get impaled on poles. They saw a lot of different things. The people who went and experienced those things did not do those things because they wanted to die or trying to die a martyr's death. They went because they thought their death might actually make a difference, and they didn't fear it because they believed that Jesus actually rose from the dead. And if he actually rose from the dead, the benefits of that flow to me. Death need never write the final chapter in my life ever again. That's why Christmas is important. The enterprise starts there. Decreeing something from on high and just declaring a divine Ali Ali income free doesn't change anything. The system goes merrily on. And by the way, if you're really confused, that's what we'd yell at the end of Ghost in the Graveyard or kick the can or whatever else, and then everybody knew the game was over, we could come back home. And some of you with video games going, what's Ghost in the Graveyard? Anyway, talk to me later. The good news about Christmas is it started something, and the end of that story is I can share the same life that Jesus gives. That's the good news this morning.